For today's crónica, we're in a little eatery in West Dallas called Singha Thai. It's a family-owned restaurant that's been in the community for 32 years and specializes in traditional Laotian and Thai cuisine. I'll explain to you what Laotian culture has to do with this story a little later. But for now, Scotty, Mariano, I have another trivia question for you.
Yes. All right. Love trivia. I love trivia. Let's go.
I think you'd be difficult to play against.
So the question is, gentlemen, people in Asia eat this many pounds of rice per year.
Per year?
Okay, I'm going to give you the options, so don't start.
Pounds, not tons.
Pounds. People in Asia eat this many pounds of rice per year. A, 10 pounds. B, 20 pounds. C, 300 pounds. D, 450 pounds. They're thinking.
You know, I make a decent amount of rice at home. I'm trying to think, like, how much would you think, say, a cup of rice weighs?
I feel like this is something Mariano would know.
I'm going to go for the 450 because if on average you're eating a pound over the course of 2 meals, so like about half a pound per meal per person for 365, but you take a few off, you could get to 450 real quick.
Yeah.
So that's my guess.
I like that math. I was going to go also with D, 450 pounds per year, because I feel like it's pretty easy to get a pound a day, and you're not doing a little more than a pound a day, 365 days a year. So I'm going with D, final answer.
Well, gentlemen, you are both incorrect.
It was C. Clearly, it's got to be C then.
Yeah, I would hate to say that it's anything but that.
It is C, 300 pounds of rice per year.
The outlier got us.
Yes, so a little fun trivia while we wait for our food. I know I got fried rice with my food. What did you get, Scotty?
Well, first of all, thank you for bringing us here. This restaurant is beautiful. It's nice and warm. There's all this beautiful cultural things on the wall. It's beautiful to look at. So I'm really excited. I ordered the pineapple fried rice, and I can't wait for it to arrive.
And me and Mariano got these smashin' Thai teas. In my last segment, we spoke about a Marquette professor that's been researching growing rice in cold environments like Wisconsin. And in this episode, I want to talk about the people working alongside him, people like Blia Mua. I am Blia Mua. I live here in Milwaukee. Ever since my parents brought me into the world and through childhood until I got older, we always farmed until now at this age. Through a partnership between Dr. Michael Schlappe and the Fondi Farmers Market, farmers like Blia are able to access plots of land to grow their own food that can later be sold at the farmers market. Blia has been rice farming with Fondi for the past 2 or 3 years, but her history of farming stretches back to her childhood growing up in Laos. Growing up with my parents, we only farmed on mountainsides. We farmed on mountainside and grew rice and corn to eat. Ever since I married my husband's family had farms in the valley on level ground and grew rice in that environment. Rice is important to nourish our families so that we can grow strong and survive until this day and age. I wanted to get a little more background on rice farming and its connection to Hmong culture, so I headed to Milwaukee's east side to meet with the UW-Milwaukee Vice Chancellor and Professor Chia Vang. She researches refugee communities in the U.S. and actually was born in Laos, and like many Hmong people living in the U.S., was displaced after the Vietnam War and resettled in Minnesota. Her parents were farmers in both Laos and Minnesota.
So all over Asia, and in particular in Laos, the Hmong people who became refugees, who resettled in the U.S. and in other parts of the West, are just from Laos because of the Vietnam War era and their involvement with the United States. So Hmong historically have been an agrarian society. I mean, there were people who engaged in commerce and who traded and they did other things as well. But in the 19th and 20th century, mostly people were farmers. They existed by farming, and it was subsistence farming. So that's how they survived.
Scotty, I know some years ago you actually did a lot of reporting on the Hmong community in Marathon County, which is about 3 hours north of Milwaukee. So talk a bit about the farming that you saw them doing up there.
It was incredible. We met ginseng farmers And to look at their operation was incredible. And just so folks know, ginseng in Wisconsin is so sought after. Even in China and other countries, they want Wisconsin ginseng, and it's primarily grown in the Waukesha area. The story that you're referring to, and I really encourage folks to go on YouTube and find it because it's one of the most incredible stories I've ever heard in my life. This couple fled during the Vietnam War, part of the Secret War. And so like the main woman in this story, she fled and she was with a group of like 10 children and the parents leading her out of Vietnam. And they were approaching the Mekong River and they settled overnight at a camp and they heard enemy camp nearby. And so in order to survive, they gave all the children a little piece of opium so that they would not cry overnight and that they wouldn't be discovered by this enemy camp. In the morning, only 2 of the 10 children survived. The other 8 had died from an overdose from the opium, and this woman was one of the 2. As they approached the river, in order to survive, they didn't have food or water, so she talks in the interview about the men in the group having to urinate in a cup, and that she had to drink that to survive. And eventually she made it across the river and into safety and entered refugee resettlement services, is now has a wildly successful ginseng business in Wisconsin. I mean, it's an insane story.
The owners of Singha Thai are immigrants from Thailand and Laos. I asked their daughter Alexis, who's also the restaurant manager, about her mother's immigration story from Laos to the States. Details that she admits can be a little vague, mainly because it's a period her mother doesn't like reliving.
I'm Alexis Vesitone. I'm the manager at Singha Thai. Well, it's a bit foggy because she hasn't told me a lot, but she did escape Laos to come to Thailand. She had to learn Thai and everything, so they were able to escape with brother, and then I think it was just her and her brother and my grandparents. And then they came here. They actually came to Illinois first, and my dad did come from Thailand to here. They met in Chicago at a restaurant. So he was a dishwasher, she was a waitress. So, yeah.
I'm just curious, when you say that it's a bit foggy, is it just because your mom doesn't talk about it because she prefers not to because it's so traumatic and painful, or?
I think that's the case because I try to ask her, but she gives me like little short answers and everything. And sometimes when we go to Thailand, we have family at the border, and we always ask if she wants to go to Laos, and she seems adamant about it.
I think in doing this story, there's such a big Hmong population in Milwaukee, and so it was important to me to try to understand more of like, well, how is that? So it was really interesting to learn about the role the Vietnam War played in the Secret War, as you had said. So many refugees coming here from Laos, and that's such a big part of this story, and them being able to bring a part of their culture and it still apply here. You know, it's still being a way for them to provide for their families and still feel connected, and that was a big part when I spoke to Blia. Here at the Nature Preserve, Hmong farmers like Blia are able to not only observe Michael's modern-day process, but also give their own expertise to the project. When Blia was talking to us about the difference in process between herself and Michael, she was very passionate with her body language, so even if you didn't speak Hmong, you knew she had a lot to say. I spoke with the Fandi Farm Director and COO, Stephen Petro, about how for many of the Hmong farmers, being able to grow food here is reminiscent of their lives back in Laos.
That cultural continuity piece, we talk with a lot of farmers out here, and there's a lot of reasons people farm. There's obviously an economic component to it, but it's not solely economic. A big part is cultural. Many of the farmers, when we're talking out here, will tell me how one of the reasons they farm is to show their kids what it was like for them growing up. Or to be able to grow the food and bring it home and prepare traditional meals and share it with their kids and now their grandkids.
How much rice would you estimate that you all cook in a day here?
Oh my goodness. Well, weekday we probably cook maybe like, we have like a 60-cup rice cooker. We probably cook like 2 of those. Weekends, it's continuous. It's probably like 5 or 6 or 7. Depends how busy it is. But yeah, we make a lot of rice.
So by now you probably get a sense of why we're here at Singha Thai. I mean, 1/5 of their menu is rice. And you heard Alexis, they're making hundreds of pounds of rice a week. Something that I will say was interesting to me, though, is that while in a lot of these interviews people were saying rice is a way of life, Dr. Chia Vang, who we just heard from, actually said that in her dialect of the Hmong language, the word used for food actually is the word for rice. I spoke with Dr. Vang about the cultural significance rice has in Hmong households.
Well, it's Hmong in particular, but it's all Asian societies in generally, right? Rice is a staple food for many people all over the world, but in particular in Asia, rice is the staple food. And so we joke about, you go to most Asian homes, there isn't really one without a rice cooker, right? So it's just a way of our diet, and that was the main staple food. And so interestingly, I don't know if they told you this, but in the word in Hmong for food, right, general is also the word for rice. Okay? Oh, wow. So that's why they would make a statement like that. So I'll tell you what it is. So rice, the uncooked rice, is blé, right, in the dialect that I speak. But food, when you say mo, it's also reference to rice. But when you say mo, no mo, right, eat rice, but literally means eat food. So that's why she would say rice is life.
Well, gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed your Thai tea. I hope, Scotty, that your pineapple fried rice is amazing. In my last chronicle, we'll take a step away from the Mequon Nature Preserve and learn more about rice farming in native tribes in Wisconsin, like Menominee and Ojibwe, next time on Speaking Of. I'm Alexandria Mack.
I'm Mariano Avila.
And I'm Scotty Lee Myers.
Thanks for listening.